Hey, I'm back for another book review. The book I'm looking at is called The Wax Child by Olga Ravn. Olga Ravn is a Danish author who I've previously reviewed on this channel before. She did this fantastic science fiction novella called The Employees. So when I heard that her newest novel was going to completely depart from that setting and be set in 17th century Denmark, focusing on a real witch trial, I was really excited to dig into it. Unfortunately, I found it to be a kind of mixed bag. The whole thing is told from the perspective of this wax character that Christens, one of the accused women, has created for herself to work her magic through. It's kind of like a voodoo doll. It can't talk or do anything, but it can think, it can experience the world around it. In the context of the story, it's telling you all about its mistress and its memories from hundreds of years ago, and it's buried in the ground, and it says, "Oh, I can only tell my story to the worms and the maggots now." So already a really interesting introduction, and it keeps that strength going for it, because in the opening few pages we've got Christens, she's living in this village, and these women are all coming together to help this woman, conceive a healthy child and all this stuff. So there's all these folk superstitions and traditions that come into play here, little rituals. They hold this girdle when the mother is giving birth as a way of feeling her pain, because they can feel her pain by holding the girdle, and it's kind of a way of female solidarity, and that's kind of a motif that plays throughout this book. It's also a great way of showing how this is a world in which magic is ubiquitous. Everyone has their little superstitions, their little home remedies that sound magical, and of course Christianity itself has a lot of magic powers going on in it, whether it be baptism or the Eucharist or other things like that. So we're going into a world that feels fantastical, and it really grays the line between what's considered okay magic, that's fine in the everyday, and what's considered evil and sinister witchcraft. Ravn has a very unusual and unique style of writing, and also a pretty unusual style of structuring her stories. Just like in The Employees, The Wax Child has chapters that are very fragmentary and very short. You're jumping from scene to scene quite a bit, sometimes you're going forward and backward in time, and sometimes the chapters are very introspective. Instead of, progressing the story, they're kind of ruminating on the world that the story is set in. Now in The Employees, it really worked with the format. The story was about all of these different perspectives giving their experience of what was happening. But in The Wax Child, I found that this format sometimes worked against the story and was a little bit of a barrier to engage and empathize with the characters. But she has this really provocative prose style that really draws you in at times. There's a part, for example, when Christens leaves her village because there are suspicions that maybe she's a witch, she moves into this big city. And this is the description we get for the city. "I saw in a single vision the town's fleas in all their thousands. I saw blood in small and large quantities. I saw funeral pyres and body parts displayed on the square as a deterrent. I saw money change hands, land be parceled out, humans bought and sold. I saw brother turn against brother, mother against daughter. I saw hearts thirst for revenge and hands that craved for violence. This was Aalborg, city of hate." So those sections really sound like they're straight out of black metal lyrics or something. They're really awesome. But then there's other times where I found that the prose was just a little bit too overwrought. So it varied, but you can really see that Ravn got her start as a poet before she became a novelist. The book is split evenly into two parts. In the first part, you see Christens in her village before she's kicked out under suspicion of witchcraft. She goes to the big city, she meets another group of women to be her friends, including some women who are also cunning folk and practice magic and all that. And then the second half, they get caught, there's the trial and the public scorn and all of that. I found the book quite uneven in these two parts. The first part was much more interesting in my opinion. This is where the book is playing on a lot of intrigue and uncertainty to sort of keep you guessing. You're also shown this very stark distinction between what regular people do as their superstitions and what Kristan's does, and how it's very creepy and sinister and all this stuff, but it makes you wonder, like, what is she doing? Is she doing something that's good? Is she a good witch? Or is she like a bad witch that means to do everybody harm and that sort of thing? And it's left very ambiguous, so it kind of invites you to participate in the witch hunt and the suspicion yourself, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's really playing to the strengths of the premise, which is this wax child only showing fragments of what happened, because the wax child only saw little glimpses of what was going on around him at any time. And then of course there's this idea of witchcraft being a metaphor for women sticking together in a very patriarchal society, where they're, for example, helping women give birth, they're protecting women from abusive husbands, things like that. The second half really fell apart for me, and that's because it's just so predictable. You pick up a book about a witch trial, what do you expect to happen? It's disappointing because Olga Ravn in The Employees was very unique in the story and the way it was executed. Sure, she was playing with a lot of very tried and true tropes, but she was doing new things with them and really toying with them to make them feel fresh. I thought that this book, even if it's based on a real story, would do the same sorts of things, but I feel like it didn't. Of course, there are some interesting moments. For example, you see how the solidarity between the women is put to the ultimate test, as like they're being encouraged to inform on one another and things like that. There's this really brilliant monologue from Kristan's, which it took me a while to work out what the author was getting at, but when it started to click, it really tied the narrative and the themes about womanhood together for me. It's just, I really felt like the book lost its potential. It had a lot more promise than it ended up delivering on later. I also found that the prose got particularly overbearing in part 2. There were these very repetitive sections where it's like a crowd scene, and every 2 words of dialogue you've got someone said, someone said, someone said, so much so that it just got overwhelming and really distracted me by reminding me that I was reading a book, if you know what I mean. So, The Wax Child is creepy, it's weird, it's got a lot of very striking imagery and concepts. Some of the magic that's being done is very surreal. It's just, I don't think it stuck the landing at all. That back half really dragged for me. So, I would give it a 6 out of 10 overall. I think some people, though, might appreciate it more than me. So if anything that I've said about it intrigues you, then by all means go out and pick it up. It's a very short little novella. It's like I got through it in 2 sittings, so it won't take a ton of time. It's pretty low commitment. But yeah, have you read The Wax Child? Have you read anything else by Olga Ravn? And also, have you read any non-fiction books about witchcraft or the witch trials that are really good? Because I've been in a little bit of a witchy mood lately, and I would love to read like a proper non-fiction to really teach me about what this period was like, what these people believed, and things like that. But anyway, that's me. I've been deep in the reads. Hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time.